Welcome to Board Game Publisher. Today we will be speaking about art, commissioning art and following the whole process between your first request and the finished art for your game. During the game development process, you will realize that you have a lot of components in your game, not only the box and the rules, but also the board and all of the components that you will have. And all of these need art, especially in the current market. Players now expect your game to look good, and that is very important. I will not enter into the topic of what looks good and what does not look good, because it's very subjective, and also it will depend on the audience that you target and on the artist that you choose and the kind of game you are publishing. So it's very much a personal thing and a personal decision to make. However, there is a process that you should follow when commissioning art so that you avoid any surprises and so that you work efficiently with the artist. So the first thing is to select an artist. There are plenty of artists that are interested in working with board games, and there are plenty of artists also that do not have previous experience with board game, but that can produce very good art that is suitable for board game as well. So first thing first, you cannot in any way, shape or form just take images from the internet and put them on your game. That is a blatant copyright violation, and that's not the way things should be done, and it could land you in court. So do not do that. You want to commission custom art from an artist, especially for your game. And it also has to be up to the standards of what the current market expects. So look at existing games, look at how they are illustrated, and make sure that what you provide can stand next to that and look good. The first thing is to make an inventory of all the components that you need illustrated. And for all of these, you will need to write down exactly the specification of that. By the specification, I mean if you need, for instance, a cover art, you know that your box will be a certain size, and you have to say, okay, I want a cover art for the box that has X centimeters by X centimeters, and I want it into 300 dot per inch resolution, and I want it in CMYK color. So you have to be very specific about that so the artist knows what to expect. You also have to know the process that your artist would be using. For instance, I remember for one of my games, I commissioned art from an artist, and he provided me very good art, and I wanted him to change something. There were several elements into the illustration, and I wanted him to take one element and to move it into a different place into the illustration. And he told me, okay, it will be a while. And it was still the beginning, so I did not react immediately to that, and I said, okay, and then eventually the correction came. And I discussed this with the artist and said, hold on, how come it took some time? And he told me, I'm working in acrylic on canvas, so I had to white out the part and to repaint it completely. I was ashamed. I was taking the assumption that he was working using digital medium, and so that he had all of the elements on different layers, and it was easy to reorder them. So that's the kind of thing you have to learn about, and that's the kind of things you have to discuss with the artist. Because if you say to your artist, please be aware that the cover art will have several elements, and I want these elements to be on separate layers because I may need to reorder them, that's something the artists need to know, and if they know it before they start creating the art, they will avoid spending a lot of time on it. Knowing this is also very important with regard to price, because if you let the artist know that before you start, they can more precisely evaluate the time they will need to do the illustrations for your game, and so they will give you a price that is according to that. If it's obvious when you first discuss with the artist that you lack experience and that you don't know exactly what you are doing, he will be on the safe side and say, okay, I will give you a more expensive price because I'm not sure of how long this will take. So you have to be very careful about that. The process I usually follow for commissioning art is that I start with a mood board. A mood board is a series of images, and these can be images that you get from the internet and from various resources, because this will be just privately exchanged between you and the artist. The idea of the mood board is to let the artist know what you expect. So you will show him images that are like the art you want him to produce for your game. It can be pictures from existing games, it can be images from a movie, from an anime, from a comics, whatever. It's just a way to tell them, okay, this is the kind of mood, this is the kind of feel I want. This is also the kind of detail level that I want. So you can tell them, I want something that will very much look like a comic book, hand-drawn with black lines around the characters. Or on the other hand, you can tell them, I want something that will be photorealistic, or something that will look like a painting from the early masters and things like that. You really need to provide a lot of information to the artists so they know exactly what to expect with regard of style, with regard of level detail, and with regard of complexity. Complexity is also an important aspect because when you pay for custom art, what you are mostly paying for is the time of the artist. They will take a lot of time to create the art for your game. So you have to be very precise about what you want so that the time needed can be precisely estimated by the artist. The first thing to do is to ask for sketches. That would be the very first step, because sketches are done on the pencil or digitally, but they are quick to be done. So you can put all of the important aspects of the illustrations just on the sketches and say, okay, once the sketches are approved, and this is a commitment I usually made to my artists, I tell them, once the sketches are approved, the general layout of the illustration, the shape, will not change. So you know that the sketches that you provided, once they are approved, you can go on to the color and then to the detailing and then to the shading, and it's an iterative process. Each time you add more detail to it, but you can tell them once the sketches are done, the general image will not change, and that is a very important part of the process, because if you tell them that you will work this way, they know that you will be efficient in making the decision, and they also know that once the art once they are reaching the coloring stage and the detailing stage and the shading stage, they will not have to redo all of the illustration from scratch. They know that they will be iterating on something and that they can rely on that. That's a very important aspect of the process. Of course, it can happen. You should avoid it as much as possible, but sometimes it can happen that during the development process, during the art, the making of the art for the game, you realize that something must change and that you must ask for different art or for new art. So you must avoid that as much as possible, because it will cost time and money for you and the artist. And also it could delay your project very much, because usually artists are in demand. And if they have other projects that are bound to start after they have given you the art for your game, and then you come back to ask for changes, they may not be available for a while before they can commit to it again. So you have to be careful about that. And availability is also something that you must discuss with the artist before you do the commission of the art. The next step will be to set the general color palette of the illustration. So once the artist has some sketches that you have approved, you can ask them to do a rough coloring of the sketches so that you see what color they want to use and how the illustration will look like. Once you have approved the rough coloring, the artist will start the detailing process. And the detailing process will be an important factor into the pricing of your illustrations as well. If you say, I just want some light shading on the shapes and the images, that will be quicker to do. If you say, I want something which is highly detailed, I want to see every bit of straw, every bit of weed on the prairie in the foreground, and I want to see every leaf on the trees. That will take a lot of time to do, and so you have to be aware of that, and you have to make sure that you and the artist both understand the level of detail that is expected into the art that the artist will provide. Once the artist is done with the rendering of the art for your game, they will send you usually digital files. I do not recommend asking for paint on canvas or actual pieces of art, but you pretty much want to have digital files that you will be able to work with in your desktop publishing program. If you should get original art, you will have a challenge to make sure that they are scanned or photographed without any issues with regard to the color temperature and the rendition of the art. So be careful about that as well. An important aspect also is the contract that you will make with the artist. Usually there are some standard arrangements, and each artist will have their own preferences. You can retribute an artist in 3 different ways, usually when commissioning art for a game. The first thing is you pay for the commissioned art, they give you the art, and then it's yours. Actually, it will always be the artist, but you have a perpetual license to be able to use the art commission into your game. That's a more precise way to state it. Anyways, you pay, they make the art, and then you can use it for your game. That's one way to do it. The second way to do it is that the artist says, okay, I expect the game will sell well, and I want to be part of the team, and I want to have some interest in the success of the game. So they will ask you for royalties according to the sales of the game. That is another way to do it, and that is perfectly acceptable as well. So you have to find an agreement with the artist. The third way is actually a mix of both. So some artists will ask you for a setup fee to commission the art, and then for royalties afterwards. So whatever arrangement you choose, you have to discuss that with the artist and make sure that both parties are in agreement, and you have to put that on paper and make a contract that is signed by both parties. This is to protect yourself, and this is to protect the artist, so that the rights of both parties are clear and exactly what is expected is known and put on paper. That is very important. I cannot stress enough the importance of making a contract with both the artist and the game designer. If you find this video useful, hit the like button. If you did not find it useful, hit the dislike button. Please also leave me a few comments about what you think about this video and what other topics you would like me to cover. If you want to make sure not to miss the next video, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell. Thank you, and see you later.